We are back with another episode of the Erectile Dysfunction Radio Podcast. Today we are joined by a guest named Williams N. Richards. Williams is a Canadian author who lives in Montreal. In his inaugural novel titled Mother, the main character struggles with erectile dysfunction. Williams himself has been on his own journey of experiencing erectile dysfunction and ultimately getting to a better place. He is a 49-year-old divorced father of two teenage boys. We're going to link to more information about Williams and his writing in the description of the episode below. Williams, thank you very much for joining us.
No problem. Thank you for having me, and you can call me Will.
Okay, so we'll call you Will. Will, so can you just start us off by giving our listeners a little bit more background information on yourself, and in particular, with the aspects of your life leading up to, during, and currently as they pertain to the experience of erectile dysfunction?
Sure. ED is something that only happened to me, I guess, in the last sort of decade of my life. So between the ages of 42 and 48, as you said, I'm 49 now. Although perhaps worth discussing a little bit later on, I did have one episode of ED in my 20s, which at the time didn't really think very much of, but now in my thought process and reflection process, I actually look back at that particular episode as kind of interesting. But for all intents and purposes, I never had any problems with ED or performance issues in the bedroom in my 20s, 30s while I was married. But it was only after I separated and left the marriage and got back into dating that I was shocked, stunned, somewhat horrified to have these problems.
So you're saying that this happened at that period post-separation and
Exactly.
getting back into the dating scene.
Exactly.
Okay. So Williams, Will, sorry. It sounds like this was roughly about 6-7 years ago that you're re-entering the dating scene. And a topic that we've covered extensively on this podcast, we've heard from a lot of guests about this reality, is the shifting nature of the dating scene. I would make an assumption that it looked a little bit different when you were getting back into the dating scene than when you had originally been in there prior to getting married. Is that a fair assumption?
Yes. I mean, I think you're probably referring to, maybe you're referring to like dating apps and
Yes.
so forth. And I didn't really use those at all. I was just doing my own. I'm a pretty social person, so I was able to meet people more organically, I guess. But that didn't, and I think after being with somebody exclusively for 15 years, I was quite excited to have some freedom to meet other partners. And that excitement quickly turned into just, I guess, incredible confusion and shame to a degree, but probably more confusion when in the first couple of times that I was with people, either things didn't work as well as I wanted them to, or they didn't work at all. And I was just flabbergasted. Like I had never had this problem before. My ex-wife and I were, had sexual relations almost up until the time that we separated. So, because people would say when I would bring this up with people, either close friends that I felt comfortable I could talk about with, or I went to a couple of sex therapists, and there's always this, well, you're getting older, you are getting older, and I'm 42 at that time. Okay, that's true, but 3 months ago this wasn't a problem.
Yes. Yeah.
And now it's a big problem. So it's not like I aged 20 years in in 3 months. Like, okay, I'm older, but I'm not older. I'm not that much older than I'm 3 months older than I was when it wasn't a problem. And then also, my defense to the "you're getting older" comments was always, well, but I'm masturbating,
Okay,
and
so you
that's
bring up
not a problem.
couple really good points here, which is the sudden onset of erectile dysfunction, or what appears like the sudden onset, coupled with such
Mm,
a major shift or transition or change in one's life. It's probably a pretty good
hmm
indicator that it's not age driven. And
hmm
the second point that you're making is that discrepancy between what a person can do on their own,
mm,
with masturbation or solo sexual activity, and what they can do with a partner is oftentimes very indicative of whether this is a aging biological issue or whether this is a psychological or psychosexual driven type of issue. One of the other things that kind of stuck out to me in your description is that this really was like something which was quite exciting to be free again and to
mm,
be able to be out there with other partners, which really kind of feeds the confusion, which is like I want to be out there. I want to be engaging with new people.
hmm hmm
Sounds like it was supposed to be a really fun, exciting opportunity, a fun, exciting um, um, turn of events in your life.
Yes,
You're getting the
yeah,
exact
exactly.
opposite reaction from your body.
Yes, yes.
Yes.
And it was just, I mean, maybe everybody does, but like, I enjoy sex, and I enjoy pleasing people. I enjoy pleasing my partners. And I I think I'm in good physical health. I have a good self-esteem. I like myself. I like my body. Um, and I am fortunate enough that uh, I'm often able to attract partners that would like to spend the night with me, or like to have a relationship with me, long or short. Um, and it still happened,
Yeah, so you're
and
checking
I can.
all the obvious boxes. You're checking all the
Right.
obvious boxes, and it's just a really confusing, frustrating, upsetting experience, I would imagine. And you said there's also elements of just shame, like what is going on here? Like what's wrong with
Yeah,
me?
I think that, uh, yeah, it was like I was on another planet,
Yeah.
and I didn't understand and I was like, I don't know, like, all of a sudden my body was alien to me. I didn't understand its own language. I didn't understand why it was responding or not responding the way that it was. I was with somebody that, I was with a partner that I was excited to be with, that I
Hmm.
wanted to be with, um, or at least that consciously I did. I would say maybe there's a little bit more to uncover behind that, but yeah, I wanted to um, have fun sexually,
Hmm.
and my
Everything seemed,
body
yeah, everything seemed to
my
align.
body just said, yeah, my body just said no.
Okay. So
And
just to
not
kind of,
only you're not going to have fun, it's going to be really awkward. It's like the opposite. Like,
yes.
what you want, you are going to get a serving of the exact opposite. You're going for dessert, and you're getting, like a bowl of mud.
Yeah.
And so eat that, and then explain it to the pseudo stranger that is beside you in bed,
Yes. So you talk about
right?
performance anxiety. So if it wasn't there before, for many minutes, it starts
Oh,
to kick in once a couple of these experiences happen, that you begin to think about it and overthink and worry. So I imagine that there probably was some of that went on here. But just to kind of give us,
absolutely.
yeah, just kind of give us like a timeline. So you're 42 years old, back in some dating scene, and there's an element of confidence. You said didn't feel any need to go on the apps. Like you go out and meet people in person, sociable kind of guy, and like all these elements that really would seem to support, promote like a excitation and a healthy erection process are there, and it's just not coming. So how long did this persist before you reach the conclusion, there's something going on with me psychologically, and then make that decision to reach out for help?
So, I mean, I think that it was really like the entire 6 year journey. I feel today, right now, that, and I don't want to tempt fate, but I feel like I've figured it out. And the last three experiences I've had, it hasn't been an issue. But I would say, and I mean, I think I'm lucky in a way that for other reasons in my life, I've almost always, since I've been a teenager, have had a therapist somewhere in my life, somewhere lurking around, like maybe not weekly or monthly, but somewhere there, and that's continues to this day. As not a sex therapist, just a regular psychologist. So I was, and I say that I'm lucky to have that for two reasons. One is that uh, I think I'm highly attuned to why things are happening in my head and my emotions because of that work that I've done over the years. And then the other is that I wasn't scared to go see a sex therapist.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, okay, this is an issue, so let's go talk to a sex therapist. And I did. I spoke to two, and I have to say that it wasn't. It was a comforting experience, speaking with the sex therapist, but it wasn't a helpful experience. And obviously, every sex therapist is different. And one of the things that I really like about the work that I see you do is the thoroughness. I haven't been in therapy with you, but I've seen through your podcast and your website and everything. Like you're very thorough about this particular issue and men's health and men's sexuality in general. And I'm sure that makes a big difference. Like I'm sure there's lots of different sex therapists. So, anyways, the couple that I saw, they were more focused on sort of the mental state one, like really like how do you get into the mental state to relax enough to be able to perform sexually. And so there was a lot of talk and discussion about what do you need to do? Do you need to like go for a run beforehand to relax? Do you need to think, when you think about your girlfriend or the person that you want to sleep with, imagine her in a very sexy way, focus on your breathing, all this, and know that it's normal. This happened. You're not the only man. This might be the first time it's happening to you, but it happens to men frequently and so forth. But I found that these sort of techniques actually just, in my case anyway, compounded the performance anxiety, because it was almost like, okay, focus on these techniques so that you can perform. Well, now that just makes me think about performing.
Yeah.
So it wasn't very helpful. I didn't pursue it. And after about, I would say, 6 months, I fell into my first of two girlfriend relationships during the 6 year period. Mm-hmm. So in the last 6 years, I've been fortunate enough to have two girlfriends, each relationship lasting about 2 years, with about a year, in between them. So at the beginning of the first relationship, the problems were there a little bit, but I had a non-relationship relationship with this woman for about 5 years prior to us becoming boyfriend and girlfriend. So there was already a comfort level there. And then she also was really comfortable sexually, much more than me. In fact, a lot of my openness around my own sexuality is, thankful to her and the kind of person that she was. And so I think there was a little bit of a comfort level there. And then anytime there was kind of a little bit of an issue, it was kind of funny. Like she just told me I could do it. She was like, it's not a problem. Like, you're going to do it. Like, you can do it. Like, almost I'm the coach for one of my children's hockey teams. And
Mhm.
like, I'm not a great technical coach. I just tell the kids, you can do it.
You're a motivator.
Yeah, like, you can do it. You can do it. Like, nothing's going to stop you. You can do it. I mean, and I feel like almost like that's the message she was giving me. Like, it wasn't about like, I mean, yes, she cared, and yes, it didn't matter and all these things, but it was almost just like this unbridled enthusiasm and confidence that also helped
Mhm.
just kind of get past it. And then once I was past it, no problem. I had this 2-year relationship, and it was quite lovely and quite wonderful. And for different reasons, it ended. And then as soon as it ended, I'm back in this, like a kind of almost like a rerun of the same situation. Like, oh, it's too bad that, like, I mean, I was quite upset that the relationship was over, but at the same time, I was like, okay,
Mhm.
I'm not 82, I'm 44. I'm not 84, I'm 44. There's still like time to do what I want to do. So let's kind of get back out there. And then, hit me like a truck. Same thing happened. So, and again, just, it wasn't any easier the second time,
Mhm.
or the second round. I mean, it was more than just once, but it wasn't easier. It was still like, what is going on? And why is this happening? And I don't get it. And that, again, same, without belaboring the point, like, same kind of issues. And I was single for about maybe a year and a half, 2 years, I guess. And then my second girlfriend of this period began dating her. And there was almost no issues right from the beginning. So that was, in fact, I remember the first night that we spent together, I was like surprised and relieved that I performed.
Mhm. Almost a sign
And
that
then,
she's the keeper.
yeah, exactly. Like, it was just, and again, I had known this person. I had a bit of a relationship with her predating our dating life. And there were some things that happened, which I'm now putting my finger on as to why maybe it was a bit easier.
Mhm.
So then anyway, that's 2 years. And then that relationship ends. And then I'm back. So now I'm like 47 and I'm back on the dating scene. But I think I've kind of got this thing figured out, and it happens again, Mark. It happens again.
So
And
devastating because like it's
and
it's
like,
like it's like stop, start, stop, start. It feels like you're there, it's resolved, you got over the hump, and then only to find out that it's back.
exactly. And I think that's when I was like, okay, I want to understand this. I want to figure this out. Like, why is this happening to me? Um, I mean, maybe it's a bit silly to say, like, I don't want it to be happening. I mean, I guess nobody does, but why can I masturbate without, like, I mean, I had situations where, I would be in a casual dating situation. I would try all night to get an erection, not succeed. Okay. And I'm with somebody and they don't know me very well. I mean, and I feel terrible for that person who is kind of subjected to me trying different things all night, being determined, but it being futile. That person leaves. 5 minutes later, I can masturbate.
Correction. Yeah.
Like, what's happening? So I just started to just really, I mean, for lack of a lack of, I don't know why. I just like, I like it. I'm a person that likes to understand problems. I like to understand myself, like I said, about the therapy that I have been a part of over the years. And so I was just like, what is going on? And like, what is the role of, I think when I started to look at it over the last year, and I looked at the continuum of events, I'm like, okay, something happened in my marriage, right? Because there was no problem before my marriage, and now there's a problem. So what is it about being married or being with somebody for 10, 15 years having, sure, our ups and downs, but it was an exclusive partnership on both sides. Like, what was going on there? And the best thing that I could come up with, and that I guess I have some conviction about, is that um, intimacy was developed and understood and appreciated by my conscious, maybe not my conscious self, but by my unconscious self, in a way that the younger me, who never had a problem getting erection, just was completely oblivious to. So, and even if the marriage wasn't perfect, um, that's still a kind of intimacy. Intimacy doesn't have to be just love. Intimacy can be friction and difficulties and challenges, but that's still a level of intimacy. And you're with one person for 15 years, like you have this particular kind of connection. Like I said, it might be a good connection, it might be a bad connection, but it's still a deep, intimate connection.
Yeah.
And
I like where you're going with this, just because it sounded like the two partners that you had in between, they're both with some kind of previous comfort, knowledge of each other. There was something, again, it's hard to compare anything to a 15-year marriage. But it sounds like, again, this seems to be the working pieces for you. Okay, so you were reflecting on this. Did something shift in your partnered sexual paradigm toward, like, that intimacy being a necessary component, at least for consistent sexual activity?
so I would say yes and no. I mean, my issue is that there was still this part of me that, because I think in some ways I'm quite insecure sexually, and I think that's why being with different partners has been interesting for me, because I don't know, there's something maybe that I feel that I have to prove to myself in a sort of male cultural way. Um, and so what I kind of didn't want to accept was that I was only going to be able to get an erection in a meaningful relationship.
Mhm.
Okay. Like I sort of felt like, no, like I want to fool around and I want my body to perform when I want it to perform. And if that means on casual sex, then that's what I would like to have happen. And so I think this intimacy component, I feel, was very helpful in sort of identifying that, because that kind of made sense to me, as you just said. Then, so if that intimacy is there, then I'm going to have a better chance to perform. If that intimacy is not there, okay, well, what am I going to do? So then that brought me to the next sort of thinking phase, which is, okay, well, what do you do to create intimacy? What do you need? What do I need to create intimacy? And I thought, well, I guess I need to feel safe, because if I feel safe, then I'm going to naturally feel more intimate with that partner. And and I think that sort of, and I realized, like, somebody asked me once, well, what turns you on? And I said, kind of without thinking about it, I said, intimacy and safety. Well, that's interesting. That's not like a beautiful body, or a younger woman, or what. Like that's kind of an interesting answer, I thought. And so then I sort of went on the next level. Was like, okay, well, how do you create safety when you meet somebody? And what exactly are you, or am I, being safe about? Like, what am I trying to protect in that
Mhm.
safe area? And I thought, well, I guess if you're worried about safety, you must be concerned about being vulnerable. And so, looking for um, a safe place for my vulnerability, but that was maybe important. And then, so then, and it's difficult for me to remember the exact order of the way that I was processing this, but then my line of thinking went to, well, how do you show somebody your vulnerability? And I thought, well, what do I do when I want to seduce a woman? When I want to get a woman's attention, what are the things that I do? And I thought, well, the first thing I know that I do, is I want to make them laugh. So I'll tell, not jokes necessarily, but a little banter to try and see if I can get a reaction, a positive reaction. And I'm like, well, what is that banter? Well, and I said, and I think in a way, it's like you're doing a mini stand-up routine, right? Like you want to perform for this potential partner, and if you've ever seen an interview of stand-up comedians, like it's the most vulnerable job in the world. Like they're standing up on this stage with nothing but a microphone in front of like thousands of people or hundreds of people or dozens of people. And in a way, this is the same sort of thing. It's just on a microcosm level. So if I tell a joke or two, or make some funny comment or a self-deprecating comment or something like that, and I get a positive reaction, okay, well, that's interesting. I feel I know I'm safe to try another one. I've exposed myself. I've gone out on a limb and I've exposed myself in a very small way. Because on the contrary, if I get no reaction, if I get sort of like shut down, or that's not funny, or just no reaction, well, I'm going to close back up. I'm not going to try another joke, right? I'm not going to. So I started out with like laughing, but then there's other things that I would do. I would invite people over for dinner. So, and what's that about? Well, I'm not like a chef. Like I can cook all right, but I'm not a fantastic chef. But it's I think subconsciously I'm looking like, does this person like my food? Do they like what I do? Do they say that they like it? That's one thing, but will they eat everything on their plate? That's another thing. And it's again a kind of vulnerability. Like I'm putting this out there. They may not like it. They may not eat it. But if they do, I'm feeling a little more safe. I'm feeling a little more like I'm creating this place that I need. And then that would go to, I happen to play guitar, so can I sing them a song?
Yeah.
And
It
if I can
sounds,
do that.
yeah, I'm going to slow you down. It sounds to
Yeah.
me like, going back to the insecurity, there was an underlying, maybe like a very, very subtle underlying anxiety about stepping into new encounters, new relationships. And it sounds like, again, initially the guidance that you were being given was around increasing your excitement, increasing your
Right.
enjoyment, trying to relax. And like you had a lot of those components already there, but there was this fear about, if I show up as myself, how is this person going to react? How are they going to accept this? And it almost sounds like you've come up with a way of saying, I'm going to get the vulnerability piece out in front of all of this. I'm going to be authentic. I'm going to be myself, and I'm going to see, how does this person react?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. The and I really feel that is the big difference,
Mhm.
is by being as vulnerable as possible. I'm going to see. I'm gonna do two things. If that vulnerability, I'm gonna see if that vulnerability is going to be accepted or not, and not more than accepted, like taken care of,
Mhm.
you know, and it's also going to allow me to feel safe. And if I feel safe, I think on a subconscious level, then I'm ready. Then I'm ready to go farther. And what I found is that although I think that my days of looking for more casual sexual encounters are less interest to me
Mhm.
than maybe a few years ago. Um, I've tried this idea out over the last 6 months, where it'll be somebody that I don't know quite so well, but I do these things where I put myself in a vulnerable situation, and it's really worked. And do you know what the most vulnerable thing you can say is?
Well, I would assume one of them
I
is
have
I
ED.
have ED.
I have ED.
Yes.
Yes, I have ED. And we're gonna get together, and I might not perform. I might not get it up. And um, like it's you know it first of all, the reaction from, well, first of all, the reason why I started doing that was not actually the reason why I started telling my partners that this could be an issue was not actually because I was some like Machiavellian way to actually get an erection.
Mm-hmm.
Quite the contrary. It was that in my journey of trying to understand what was going on with me, I'm lucky enough to have some really close women friends, girlfriends, and like we're not partners, but
Yeah. Friends who
good
are women.
women friends of mine,
Yeah.
friends who are women. And I would bring up my story with them, rather sort of shamefully. Everyone said that's happened to me. Now, I haven't spoken to one woman that has not said this is including recently a woman in her early 20s. Two women in the early 20s
Yeah.
that we were talking about it. And so, and then I would ask them, well, how did you take that? And they all felt awful. And I said, but I'm like, I don't, like, what do you mean? It's like, well, was I doing something wrong? Was I not sexy? Was I not attractive? Like all these things. And I was like, that is completely
Not what's happening.
not the case.
Yeah.
That is not, like, this is so in my head and so in my body, and like it has absolutely nothing to do with you. So my reasons for bringing it up to my partners after I heard those stories from my women friends was because I was like, if this happens, I don't want you to feel bad. If this happens, this like you're a super beautiful, attractive, sexy woman. This is in my head. So I want to tell you now so that it's not about you. So that was my intention. But the secondary effect of that was hyper vulnerability.
Right. You got to see how they
And,
responded, how they reacted. Yeah.
exactly. And they all responded like, no problem. Like, we'll just take it as it goes and we'll see how, like, and I've been here before and I've had it happen before. And so that just created this space where, like I said, the last 3 or 4 encounters that have been more casual in nature, no problem.
Yeah. Well, this is a really, really powerful story because I think that, one of the things that you're highlighting is a journey that oftentimes happens in, I know in the clinical setting in my office, where guys really get down to the bottom of what is driving, like, what otherwise is seemingly a confusing experience of erectile dysfunction. And I think you've come up with a way that makes sense for you in terms of addressing that underlying worry, that underlying um, that angst, that worry, by recognizing, like, I need to feel like I can be vulnerable with somebody in order to perform. And I know that wasn't the original intention of this, we'll call it an intervention, or of this move to share that vulnerability. It really was to take care of the partner's end. But I think paradoxically, by getting that out of the way, so to speak, in the beginning, there's nothing to be afraid of at that point. Nobody has to worry about what the other person is thinking. We've spoken about it already. And in a way, by not focusing on relaxing, by actually making it a very potentially tense and unrelaxed environment at the beginning, the rest of it kind of fell into place, which is just so powerful.
As I've sort of, I guess, kind of figured out how to wire myself what I need and I think mostly a subconscious level to be able to get to the state that I wanted to perform and to not have ED be so bothersome. I have also thought about, well, what, still, like, why am I having these problems in the first place, and what does it mean when I can't get an erection. And I think where I'm trying to go with this is that I think ultimately I do want to have a committed, intimate, one-on-one partnership. And I think that my erection or lack of erection is telling me that. So I think that there's that I think I think it's very tempting when it happens to you when you don't get erections when you want to, because the way the penis is, it's a very physical thing. Like, you want it to get hard and it's not getting hard. And but I'm not a therapist, you're the expert, I'm just one person and one journey, but my instinct is that the penis is not the problem. It's more like a bellwether. It's a signal.
Yeah. So
And
the
there's
penis.
something going on in your mind, in your relationship, in whatever it is. And it's almost like your penis is saying there's things you need to fix. And it's way easier. Like, who wants to fix a relationship when you can just take a pill?
Yeah. So
Like,
they're
it's
two
much
really,
easier.
totally understand. They're two really important components to what you're saying. So one is, a lot of times the penis will talk for the subconscious when,
Mm,
like, it knows
mm,
that something isn't good for you based on the structure of your subconscious. It will oftentimes, get in the way of allowing for performance. That's number one. Number two, one of the things that I ask every single guy that comes into the office, and certainly something I speak about on the opening to the course that we offer, is, you don't need to get an erection in every possible situation that we can come up with. You need to get an erection when you need an erection. And I think that's a
mm.
discovery that you're also sharing here, which is, like, I coming to that acceptance that I ultimately want to be in a relationship. I get the appeal of the hookups, but that's not really where I want to be. And when you take that step back and say, well, yeah, outside of that hookup scene, where it's just like a quick fling, like, when I get myself into a relationship and I can get that vulnerability juice flowing, I'm in a much better space. And that really is my subconscious talking. Not everything has to be repaired. So if
Mm,
you don't
mhm.
need an erection in that setting of in the hookup setting, then nothing's really wrong.
Yeah,
It's just a matter of working with what makes sense for you. I mean, it sounds like you've come to that conclusion about yourself, that what your mind is telling you is, it really appreciates and values the safety, the comfort, the security that comes in that long-term relationship. That's where you feel most comfortable at this point. A lesson that you may have learned over the 15 years in your marriage and internalized.
absolutely. And I would also say, having been, I guess, lucky enough to have different sexual experiences, best sex I've ever had is in a relationship, and not even close. Not even close. Like, so if there's people out there that really feel, I'm missing part of life because I'm not playing the field, I don't know if that's something you want to do and you need to do, go ahead. But, like, you're the pleasure, the intimacy, the adrenaline, none of these things. The best that I've ever had have been when I've been in committed relationships.
Yeah, that's a really, really just, powerful message, I think, for the men who are listening. And everybody's different with this.
Of course.
We are wired for connection. That's, certainly one of our core and central features. And I think that does take on a more pronounced role in people's lives, certainly as they age. It does become much, much more important to many people to be having sex in the context of something which feels safe, secure, and comfortable, however they come to that configuration. Williams, it has been fantastic having you on this episode. If I could ask you for, like, a final parting word to our listeners, what would that be?
I think it would be, see a therapist. If you need help, if you don't have to do this by yourself, and definitely, um, I think therapy is a journey that you do ultimately on your own, in a sense, that the therapist is a guide to help you along, but you're the one doing the work. So in some senses, you don't need to find the perfect therapist. You just want to get started because it's your journey. But certainly, today with the internet and what we have access to, if you have a particular problem and you can find a therapist that has experience in that particular problem, that could be a great place to start.
Yeah, I couldn't have said it better myself. Williams, once again, thank you very much for joining us.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.